Good morning. My subject is Edison Waromi, the Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of West Papua. We are, therefore, examining the trauma embodied by West Papuan academics and students and the risks they take in the name of peace and justice. As such, we can't avoid examining why West Papuans still haven't accepted they are Indonesians and why Indonesia has failed to integrate them. It is appropriate to be talking about Edison Waromi and the Federal Republic of West Papua in Canberra today. Almost 60 years ago, Garfield Barwick, the Attorney General, Minister for External Affairs and the UN representative, played a pivotal role in drafting the UN New York Agreement that provided for Indonesia's appropriation of Papuan land and switched the administration of West Papuans from one foreign power to another. This is despite mentioning self-determination 17 times. The West Papuans themselves were not consulted, and the relationship between Australia and Indonesia, built on deceiving them and manipulating each other, continues, decades later, to thwart the progress of healthy regional relations. Edison Waromi is a lawyer, politician, church elder, husband, father, and grandfather. He has spent much of his adult life as a political prisoner, and in 2012 was incarcerated for the 4th time after yet another conviction of treason. We are considering Edison's sacrifice and the suffering of the West Papuans through Judith Herman's prism of trauma and recovery. Judith Herman is a psychiatrist whose analysis and treatment of victims of violence, from domestic abuse to political terror, was radical in 1992, but is now mainstream. Her paradigm is useful because it includes victims who are able to transform the meaning of their tragedy by turning its political or religious dimension into a basis for social action. In other words, they are able to transcend the atrocity by making it a gift to others. Not all victims can manage this because it requires a huge biological, psychological, social and political effort. But Edison and his colleagues have, including Jacob Rumbiak, who is here today and who spent years with Edison in Kalisosok prison. Judith Herman also believes that within violence there is a perpetrator, a victim, and a bystander. Indonesia is, of course, a perpetrator, and only last week the Asian Human Rights Commission in Hong Kong published another genocide report. However, it can be argued, and West Papuans do, that Australia is both perpetrator and bystander. So today I am hoping that as we sit in this prestigious university in the nation's capital, we will begin to acknowledge that. Judith Hermans would claim that even the act of examining Edison's life in the context of West Papuan sacrifice and suffering is the beginning of a reconciliation process. Edison and his colleagues' gift to their people and to Indonesia and to us, West Papua's closest neighbour, was to formulate a viable political solution to a long-standing geopolitical issue. What they determined might seem logical to us today, but in the 1980s, from inside a militarised authoritarian state which excluded foreigners, many West Papuans thought it was a madman's dream. I am dedicating this paper to the 564,126 West Papuans missing since 1962, to their land, to their languages, to their stolen children and their political prisoners. Edison spent 10 years in Kalisosok prison with Martinus Cambu and Jordan Ick. Martinus was a veterinary scientist and chief of a large Mabat clan in the Bird's Head. He died of prison-related injuries after returning from the Yumi One Time seminar in Melbourne in 2001. Dolly Ick, on the left, died of a mysterious illness after returning from the same conference. Her brother, Jordan Ick, on the right, from the tiny village of Yabon in the Bird's Head, was poisoned by Indonesian intelligence in 2009. This paper is also dedicated to Malbohina and Tunaminaway, two Indigenous Australians executed in Melbourne in 1842 during another undeclared frontier war. While we reflect on the courage of all these justice workers and ponder what we might do in similar circumstances, we'll listen to Arnold App, the curator of the Cendrawasih Museum in West Papua until he was assassinated in 1984. Everyone in West Papua has a tribal homeland, and Edison's is a small island off the coast of Yapen in Cendrawasih Bay. Yapen Islanders are distinguished by the shift they've made from wanting to integrate with Indonesia in the 1960s to producing some of the nation's influential independence activists and political prisoners. One of the most influential was Dr. Thomas Wangai. Wangai was a bureaucrat in both the Dutch and Indonesian colonial administrations. He studied law at Yokoyama University and completed a PhD in public administration at Florida State University. He inspired the 27 West Papuan lecturers at Cendrawasih University, including Edison, to develop an intellectual wing of the struggle and analyse the New York Agreement. He was incarcerated after raising the flag of West Melanesia on the 7th of December 1988, and he was poisoned in prison in 1996. Edison is Christian, like most Indigenous West Papuans. The Dutch Christian administration left a colony wherein the Indigenous peoples constituted 99% of the population. Under Indonesian rule, the Indigenous population has been overwhelmed by Indonesian settlers and transmigrants, mostly Muslim, and in 2010 they constituted just 48% of the population. There are calculations they will be a dwindling minority by 2020. Behind the facade of special autonomy since 2001, the government has built hundreds of mosques, and in 2005 it published plans to build the biggest in the world, in Manokwari, a place held sacred by Papuans as the site of the first Christian mission. This is Edison in Kalisosok prison in Surabaya on Java Island, with some of the 86 West Papuan academics and students jailed for subversion in December 1989. Kalisosok is a 7-day ferry trip from West Papua, so the prisoners were well isolated from their homeland and families. Edison, who already had a law degree, completed a 4-year theology degree in prison, which was supervised by the Bethany School of Ministry. He was released from prison in 1999, but was jailed again in 2001, again in 2002 for 2 years, and again in 2012 for 3 years. The root of the problem is the New York Agreement, a land grab whereby the administration of Dutch New Guinea was transferred to the Republic of Indonesia. The agreement was drafted, signed and ratified in less than 6 months. The architects of the New York Agreement, what Hermans would call the perpetrators, were America, Indonesia, Australia and the UN. The Netherlands' well-organised and well-funded self-determination project was overridden, and so too the independence foreshadowed in Dutch legislation signed by Queen Beatrix. "20 years later, in the 1980s, Edison joined a group of West Papuan academics in a pioneering nation-making project that supplanted the colonial logic of Papua as a colony in the Far East, with Thomas Wangai's logic of an independent nation that formed the western border of Melanesia. The small group's visionary ambition required Papuans to look east to their kith and kin in the Pacific, rather than west to Jakarta. It involved developing legal argument and political debate. It required organising a clandestine education campaign. It demanded the establishment of a modern political construct that enveloped, rather than denied, the Papuan tribal and traditional identities. The new paradigm also required lobbying. This is Edison lobbying the US Congress, led by Senator Ernie Falamafega, Samoa's representative in the US House of Representatives, with Salman Umami, Fakoras Yabawisimbut, and Herman Wangai. The new paradigm also involved pain and sacrifice. And here we see the Third Papuan Congress in October 2011. The difference between the opening day of prayer on the 16th of October and all the arrests and deaths at the conclusion on the 19th. On that final day, Edison was elected Prime Minister of the new political construct, the Federal Republic of West Papua. Indonesian intelligence estimated there were 20,000 Papuans at the Congress, which voted for independence within a Federal Republic of West Papua, led by Edison Waromi and Fakoras Yabawisimbut. The government responded typically, with arrests, interrogation, torture, assassinations, treason, and prison. Prime Minister Waromi, President Yabawisimbut, and 3 organisers of the Congress were convicted of attempted treason by the District Court in Jayapura, and they were incarcerated for 3 years on the 16th of March 2012. They were well represented by a team of young West Papuan lawyers, but in April 2012 their sentences were increased by 60 days because the District Court in Jayapura had not forwarded their appeal documents to the High Court in Jayapura. In 2011, Sydney University published a major paper by Jacob Rumbiak, the Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Federal Republic of West Papua. In this paper, he defines the new state and outlines its short and middle-term plans. These plans challenge traditional Western ideas about social democracy because they are developed within the reciprocal understandings that underpin Melanesian social life. Anthropologists have known about Melanesian reciprocity since Malinowski discovered the Kula Ring in the Masam archipelago off the coast of Papua New Guinea. In short, it is a two-way relation between persons or dualities that reaches across time and space, wherein opposites such as violence and non-violence are not the irresolvable dichotomies that they are for modern commodity cultures like ours. Even in situations of antagonistic unity, the mediation and resolution of opposites is calculated to enhance the status of both. So you don't get winners and losers, even if you are, as Australia definitely is, the non-reciprocating other. To conclude this short biography of Edison Waromi, the Black Orchid String Band, led by Jacob Rumbiak, is gifting you their version of a song called Freedom and Justice. You'll notice that one verse is sung in the Gem language, from the highlands, the central highlands of West Papua. If you sing along, you'll be the first Australians to speak this undocumented language from West Papua. Thank you very much.